class with Billy Sky. And today is also the appearance day of Lord Nrsingadev. So we're going to discuss a little bit about that too in the class, and about beings in general. Being. This is going to be a study of beingism, of the nature of beings, of being. We're on page 16 of the introduction. If you'd like to read the beginning of the introduction, please go back and watch the previous videos in this series. I have a friend, Bhagavad Das, who's no longer with us on this planet. But he said that he was saved by reading the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I shared that with him, that profound moment that changed my entire life and my entire destiny from reading this introduction to the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And so it is just the greatest treasure of all. The winning lottery ticket has no comparable value to the knowledge contained within these pages. So consider yourself the most fortunate person in the universe if you're able to watch and soak in this knowledge as I read it from these pages, and without self-interpretation or without rejection of the mind. You know, if you're able to absorb this knowledge, consider yourself the most fortunate person in the universe. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Lord is very kind to the living entities because they are His sons. Lord Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Yonishu Aham Bija Pradaha Pita. I am the father of all. Of course, there are all types of living entities according to their various karmas. But here the Lord claims that He is the father of all of them. Therefore the Lord descends to reclaim all of these fallen, conditioned souls, to call them back to the Sanatan eternal sky, so that the Sanatan living entities may regain their eternal Sanatan positions in eternal association with the Lord. The Lord comes Himself in different incarnations, or He sends His confidential servants as sons, or His associates or acharyas to reclaim the conditioned souls. Therefore, Sanatan Dharma does not refer to any sectarian process of religion. It is the eternal function of the eternal living entities in relationship with the eternal Supreme Lord. Sanatan Dharma refers, as stated previously, to the eternal occupation of the living entity. Ramanujacharya has explained the word Sanatan as that which has neither beginning nor end. So when we speak of Sanatan Dharma, we must take it for granted, on the authority of Sri Ramanujacharya, that it has no beginning nor end. The English word religion is a little different from Sanatan Dharma. Religion conveys the idea of faith, and faith may change. One may have faith in a particular process, and he may change this faith and adopt another. But Sanatan Dharma refers to that activity which cannot be changed. For instance, liquidity cannot be taken from water, nor can heat be taken from fire. Similarly, the eternal function of the eternal living entity cannot be taken from the living entity. Sanatan Dharma is eternally integral with the living entity. When we speak of Sanatan Dharma, therefore, we must take it for granted on the authority of Sri Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. That which has neither end nor beginning must not be sectarian, for it cannot be limited by any boundaries. Yet, those belonging to some sectarian faith will wrongly consider that Sanatan Dharma is also sectarian. But if we go deeply into the matter and consider it in the light of modern science, it is possible for us to see that Sanatan Dharma is the business of all of the people of the world, nay, of all the living entities of the universe. Non-Sanatan religious faith may have some beginning in the annals of human history, but there is no beginning to the history of Sanatan Dharma, because it remains eternally with the living entities. Insofar as the living entities are concerned, the authoritative Shastras state that the living entity has neither birth nor death. In the Gita it's stated that the living entity is never born, never dies, is eternal, indestructible, and he continues to live after the destruction of his temporary material body. In reference to the concept of Sanatana Dharma, we must try to understand the concept of religion from the Sanskrit root meaning of the word. Dharma refers to that which is constantly existing with the particular object. We conclude that there is heat and light along with the fire. Without heat and light, there is no meaning to the word fire. Similarly, we must discover the essential part of the living being, that part which is the constant companion. That constant companion is his eternal quality, and that eternal quality is his eternal religion. When Sanatana Goswami asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the Swarup of every living being, the Lord replied that the Swarup, or constitutional position of the living being, is the rendering of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we analyze this statement of Lord Chaitanya, we can easily see that every living being is constantly engaged in rendering service to another living being. A living being serves other living beings in two capacities. By doing so, the living entity enjoys life. The lower animals serve human beings as servants serve their master. A serves B master, B serves C master, C serves D master, and so on. Under these circumstances, we can see that one friend serves another friend. The mother serves the son. The wife serves the husband serves the wife, and so on. If we go on searching in this spirit, it will be seen that there is no exception in the society of living beings to the activity of service. The politician presents his manifesto for the public to convince them of his capacity for service. The voters therefore give the politician their valuable votes, thinking he will render valuable service to society. The shopkeeper serves the customer, and the artisan, I don't know how to pronounce that word. The artisan serves the capitalist. The capitalist serves the family, and the family serves the state in the terms of the eternal capacity of the eternal living being. In this way, we can see that no living being is exempt from rendering service to other living beings, and therefore we can safely conclude that service is the constant companion of the living being, and the rendering of service is the eternal religion of the living being. Yet man professes to belong to a particular type of faith with reference to a particular time and circumstance, and thus claims to be Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect. Such designations are not Sanatana Dharma. A Hindu may change his faith to become a Muslim, or a Muslim may change his faith to become a Hindu, or a Christian may change his faith, and so on. But in all circumstances, the change of religious faith does not affect the eternal occupation of rendering service to others. The Hindu, Muslim, or Christian in all circumstances is a servant of someone. Thus, to profess a particular type of sect is not to profess one's Sanatana Dharma. The rendering of service is Sanatana Dharma. Factually, we are related to the Supreme Lord in service. The Supreme Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and we living entities are his servitors. We are created for his enjoyment, and if we participate in that eternal enjoyment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we become happy. We cannot become happy otherwise. It is not possible to be happy independently, just as no one part of the body can be happy without cooperating with the stomach. It is not possible for the living entity to be happy without rendering transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, worship of different demigods or rendering service to them is not approved. It is stated in the 7th chapter, 20th verse, Kaimastayas Hrit Ajnana Prapadyante Nahya Devataha Tam Tam Niyamam Ashtaya Prakritya Niyataha Swaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 20. Here it is plainly said that those who are directed by lust worship the demigods and not the Supreme Lord Krishna. When we mention the name Krishna, we do not refer to any sectarian name. Krishna means the highest pleasure, and it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is the reservoir or storehouse of all pleasure. We are all hankering after pleasure. Anandamayo Bhyashat. The living entities, like the Lord, are full of consciousness, and they are after happiness. The Lord is perpetually happy, and if the living entities associate with the Lord, cooperate with him, and take part in his association, then they also become happy. Okay. I think we'll stop there for tonight. It's a lot to talk about and speak upon. I'm going to put a little note here, a little marker. Okay. So, we're almost finished with the introduction. We have maybe one more class. There were many things that were discussed and came about. I'll keep this here because we might need to re-go and look back. But Sanatana Dharma was one of the main concepts here that was discussed, and the reason the Lord appears in this material world to come back, the concept of the personality of Godhead. I mean, I discussed these in great length in the previous classes, but I want to go over them again in case this is your first time watching or joining the class, and I really want to emphasize or study or analyze. I want to analyze this concept of being. So when I say being, let's look at the word. And let's look at what the word represents. Being. So, we have action words, and we have verbs and nouns and things like that. So, like, if I drink, that's an action verb. That means I am doing something. I'm putting, liquid in my body. Drinking refers to that. It's like a noun. Drinking. It refers to all the activities of people that are drink. That I drink, you drink, they all drink, we drink, the world drinks. Drinking is a general thing. So, to be mean, the word is, if I refer to myself, it's am. I am hungry. I am thirsty. I am, or just I am existing. It refers to drawing something towards myself. To be. So, be, it's like to exist, right? It's like someone, he or she or they be hungry or whatever. They are hungry. This is the word. But unless it's in Ebonics, you just say be. I be hungry. You be hungry. They be hungry. Be means you're existing in that state of hunger. You're existing in whatever adjective qualifies that, So, being refers to the general concept of existing, right? Being, like, they are being awesome. They are being great. They are being whatever, right? So there's a verb meaning to that word, and there's also a noun meaning to being. So being, I am a being, means like, because that word means existing in something, and we are, by our very nature, a being, an existing entity. We could call ourselves a being. We are an existing person, an entity, a living creature, a living something. So therefore we call ourselves a being, because that word signifies the existence, that we're situated in something. So the symptom of that being is consciousness. So I know that I am conscious because I think, I feel, I will, I have thoughts. There's things going on here, and we see other beings born into this world, and we watch them take shape, through sonograms in the mother's womb as they develop from an embryo to a fetus to a baby. They take birth, they become a small person, then they grow. And this happened to each and every one of us that's human, that's watching. And so we know that we are a person, a being, but we do also identify with the physical body that we're in, and we oftentimes misidentify ourself or our being as being that body, and therefore we get confused and we think that when the body is going to die at the time of death that we may cease existing. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a great mystery, and we wonder if we're going to sleep forever in the grave, or if we're going to leave the body behind and ascend into heaven, or take another clone, a duplicate of the body is going to at the particular most ripe and beautiful age that we remember ourselves. Like Grandpa, I saw Grandpa in heaven. He was 25. He looked great. So it's like we have different ideas or concepts. There's different hypotheses about what's going to happen after death, and a lot of people say, well, no one can know ultimately, and that it's just a great mystery. But the authority of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita as it is saying that this information has actually been passed down through disciple succession from one chain, an unbroken chain of spiritual master to disciple, beginning with the Lord himself, the proprietor of everything, the being from whom all things were caused. And he passed this knowledge down, and it's been perfectly preserved, and therefore it's most authoritative, and one can check back through lineages, and one does not necessarily have to just take this information at face value and go, okay, well, that sounds great. You're saying that information has more authority than some of the great thinkers of our time, who are, can't seem to come up with a greater answer other than it's a mystery. And so there's going to be much debate on this subject no matter what, and ultimately Lord Jesus Christ, like he said, if you want to do the will of my Father, you will know that I am from him. If you do not want to do the will of my Father, then you will not know that I am from him. So it's like that. It has to do with a person's sincerity, and it has to do with how bad a person wants to experience the highest pleasure that's available for the living entity. Certain people like myself, we are crazy intent on experiencing the highest pleasure and the highest happiness that's available for a living being. We will stop at nothing without achieving that goal of first place. And so for people like me that have that drive, there's no reason why or there's well, let me take a few steps back, okay? Because I'm losing my train of thought here. But we'll come back to that thought here. Let's go back to being, okay? So I exist. I'm a person, right? Whether or not I am my body or I'm not my body, okay? Whether or not the great thinker that thinks it's all a mystery is right, or whether the acharyas of Vedanta that I'm speaking of are right, I know, and you probably know, that you are a person, okay? So this is just a very basic philosophical exercise of knowledge that we can perform. And what we're doing is we're analyzing the nature of being here, so I can discuss something, a point that I want to make, a greater point. So I'm a person, okay? And I'm not two people. I'm one person. I am a singular person, okay? And I know that because of my experience. Even though I have two eyes, okay? I only see and perceive one giant screen bubble. I'm in this body right now. You can see my face on the camera, but I can't see if I didn't have the camera in front of me, I couldn't see my face because I'm looking out of the face. Okay, and then I have these hands, these working senses. I have these feet. It's all attached, it's all emanating from the center of my being. okay? The center of my person. Now, because I am a person, I'm one person, I look around in the world and I see other persons that are like me, one person. And I see animals, and I see bugs, and I see ants, and they're all one person. Now, I do see twins sometimes, and this gives me, it puzzles me. We see twins, we see three-headed dogs, we see, very interesting freaks of nature, we would call them, because they're not ordinary. It's not one person. It seems to be many people in one body. Could it be? So there are things that are puzzling about this, but in general, I am one person, and the majority of other beings that I encounter in this sphere of existence, this world, this earth, are one person. Okay? So, therefore, a lot of scientists and a lot of great thinkers have concluded that that there's nothing more possible than that being a singular living entity is this great thing that is magically, not magically, but by chance, by crazy chance, by some complex organization of events over millions and trillions of billions of years of different, molecules flashing everywhere and interacting and banging together, the elements somehow came together and life was created or formed, and it developed into a person. Okay? That's one theory. And then the Vedanta theory is the living entity is impregnated into nature through the glance of the Supreme Lord, and that presence of the living entity causes the growth of the material body, and therefore that being is there, and that being had no beginning and it had no end, and it will exist forever, and it always does exist, and it's going to just simply take different forms depending on its state of consciousness and karma and destiny. And so either way, it's one person, it's one being. So we go and we don't have any recollection of anything else other than what we can experience as one singular being, and therefore we cannot fathom that there could be a different class of beings, that there could be a different type of being, or a different way that a being experiences reality other than one singular bubble like we have. We can't fathom it because we don't have that. We have one bubble. Okay, so because we can't fathom it, a lot of people arrogantly conclude that it's impossible, or that it's they put limitations on reality, on other types of beings and things that could be out there in the world. People, they go, oh, aliens, that doesn't exist. I can't see it. I can't perceive it. How arrogant can a person be to think that they are the end all, see all, be all? I mean, even in modern science, we've looked at the actual things that are going on right now with the planet moving and the stars and everything and the spectrum of light. I mean, humans can only see a certain spectrum of light. Humans can only hear a certain frequency of sound. There is so much more sound and light and things that are going on right here, right now in front of us that we cannot perceive. We have a limited ability due to the body that we're in. So just looking at that, how can a person be so ignorant, so arrogant to say that there cannot be a higher class of beings that can exist in multiple spheres of awareness simultaneously? Okay? Try to understand that. We are fourth dimensional or third dimensional beings. Okay? We're moving in one dimension, two dimensions, three dimensions, and we are passing through time, the fourth dimension. Okay? There are higher dimensions. There are fifth dimensional beings who are beyond space and time, who are not trapped by time, but simply can move through time as they choose, okay? And all of these fifth dimensional beings are connected to a seed source being. In other words, they are all emanations or manifestations or expansions of this higher being who has complete control over these smaller dimensions that we find ourselves completely unable to unable to conquer. So we are a minute singular living being who is not in control over everything, but there is a higher class of beings who come from a proprietor being. A proprietor being meaning, what is a proprietor? I am the proprietor of my house, my dog, my family. I have a small domain. The queen ant is the proprietor of her colony of ants. The queen bee is the proprietor of her colony. They provide, okay? Everything is being provided here. All beings are being provided by the seed source being, by the proprietor being, by a fifth dimensional being who is not limited to one sphere of awareness. He can exist, he does exist in an infinite number of spheres simultaneously. Can you just imagine that? I mean, it's hard to fathom. It's difficult to fathom, okay? We can't really, we have, like I said, we have one sphere of awareness. We can't really fathom what it would be like to have multiples simultaneously, okay? However, this is the information that's been passed down from the spiritual dimension about the qualities of the Supreme Lord. He's called the Supreme Personality of Godhead, meaning that of all the demigods, of all the powerful beings, of all of these fifth dimensional beings, he is the Supreme Personality of them all, who they all worship and love. He is the source of everything. He is the proprietor of everything, and he is the supreme enjoyer. In other words, he knows how to have the best time. And everything is set up so that he can have a best time. And that's his purpose, is to enjoy. And he's good at enjoying. Just like we try to enjoy, but we're not that good at it. But we try anyways, and we get better at it. But he's the best at it. And not only that, but he renders to those who serve him with love, he renders them pleasure. Okay? He reciprocates that loving service by giving the living beings pleasure who serve him with love. So this is to do with that, what we just read about Sanatana Dharma, our eternal religion, to serve someone, saying we all are going to serve someone. So we need to serve this. We need to serve the proprietor being, the being who has an unlimited amount of spheres of awareness, the being who has the capacity to do magnificent, magnanimous things. He can fulfill all of our desires. He can fulfill all of our unlimited wants. He is hooked up. He is ready and equipped to do what we need to make us happy. Okay? And no other being in this world that we're looking for is going to be able to do that. We meet a hot girl, we meet a hot guy, we think, man, I'm going to have a relationship with them. It's going to be so good, whatever, even if it lasts 50 years, 70 years, whatever, it's never going to be able, they're never going to be able to satisfy all of our desires. They can maybe satisfy a certain portion, a certain percentage, and we think, well, this is great, that there's a good percentage of things, what I wanted out of life, and, this person is going to really be able to satisfy a good chunk of what I wanted, and then the other things I want, I'll go search and I'll just arrange it in such a way. No, this proprietor being, the supreme being, can satisfy all of our desires. We don't have to worry, and we don't have to try to squeeze pleasure out of someone, putting expectations on them to be that satisfying agent for us. It's an unfair demand on that other person. Rather, we should respect that they have a spiritual journey to connect back to the Lord, and we should help facilitate their spiritual journey, and we can be friends in that relationship where we're not trying to take from each other, but we're simply acknowledging and loving each other in our own heart as we serve the Lord together. So this is a spiritual relationship, and this is what we should be seeking after. But first and foremost, we need to recognize that there is a class of beings greater than us, and that ultimately this higher class of beings stems from one being who is the proprietor of everything. He is the supreme enjoyer, and he is our best friend. He is the best friend of every person. That's what we need to really realize and link up with him, is in friendship, okay? We're all looking for a good friend out here, and we go from one friend to the next until they burn us in one way or another, and then we drop them and move on to another person. We need to turn to that person who can really be that best friend, and that is Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita, as it is the song of God. It is the song of Krishna speaking to Arjuna on the battlefield, giving him the instructions of how to perfect the human form of life, the human form of existence. And it applies to each and every one of us. It is this song that Krishna is giving that is the most useful, the most loving, the most gentle, the most sweet, the most reassuring, and the most comforting thing that anyone could ever give to another person. I mean, my heart, I'm going back in time right now, thinking about the wounds that have healed, the great despair, the isolation, the crying out, for shelter, the not having anyone or anything to turn to, and having all of that emptiness and that longing be answered by Krishna's words, in confidence, when he says, Manmava bhakto manyaji man namaskru manyavasashi satyam te pratijane prayo vashime. Just worship me, pay homage to me, become my devotee. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. He's like, we can't remember this. We can't remember our friendship with Krishna, but he can. He remembers. And he knows how much he loves us and how much he understands. A good friend always understands. And he knows our situation. And he's saying, I promise you this. You're going to come back to me. Just worship me. Pay homage unto me. Offer your obeisances unto me. And become my devotee. You're going to come back to me. Without fail. He's like, don't worry about the rest. I'll take care of it, okay? He says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about any religion. Don't worry about nothing. Just become my devotee. And Krishna says, worship me directly. My name is Krishna. I'm the supreme being. This is what he's saying. I love you. I'm your best friend. I've been waiting for you to remember me. I'm so glad that you're starting to. Please just surrender to me and I'll take care of you. That's what he's saying. And it's the most amazing reality that anyone can do, is just surrender in their heart to the Lord. You can surrender to the Lord and at any moment you want. And he'll take care of you. He promises us this because he's our dear friend. No one is that nice. No one is that sweet. No one in this world loves you that much. Except for his representative. Except for his fully surrendered servant. In other words, the devotee that fully surrenders to Krishna becomes that external manifestation of Krishna and loves us with that same intensity that Krishna loves us. So hopefully we can, through sukriyati, through pious activities, through doing good to others, hopefully we can come to that point where we become eligible to come into contact with someone that's on this planet that's fully surrendered to Krishna. That would be so wonderful. That would be better than winning the lottery. Guaranteed. Because a moment's association with the pure devotee is more valuable than all of the wealth in the entire universe. I mean, because you're going to have to leave that behind at the time of death. But what you will gain from a moment's association with the devotee will change your destiny forever. It will stay with you after you die, after you leave this body. I mean, it's like just floating in ice cream, you know? It's like swimming in an ocean of ice cream, you know? It's just like, oh, this is amazing. There's ice cream everywhere. Oh, that's ice cream. Oh, this is great. More ice cream. Ice cream. You know, just imagine it. That's what's going on here. We're talking about swimming in an ocean of ice cream here. Let's do it. Let's go for it. So if you're like me, and you really want to taste the highest nectar, the highest pleasure, you know, then this is how you do it. You surrender. You have to surrender your heart and your mind. It can be difficult. It can be a difficult thing, you know. I'm still very far away, but I at least know what the goal is that I'm trying to achieve, you know, and I'm hacking away at it as best I can. The obstacles are insurmountable. They're very, very impossible. However, there is hope, because no matter how difficult the obstacles, the holy name of the Lord makes that obstacle, it makes a concrete wall turn into sandpaper, into seaweed. You know, seaweed, sheets of seaweed just crumble away. So that difficulty, that concrete, stone cold heart that I have, that, you know, that screwed up mind that I have, the holy name disintegrates the impossible. And that's Krishna. That's the power of Krishna. He's the most powerful. Everything, like we said, he's the proprietor. It all came from him anyway. It's all his energy. So, of course, he has command over it. So, pleasing Krishna is really the goal, you know. It's not about, can I see God? It's about, can God see me, you know? If God sees me, I know that I'm safe and I'm comfortable and I'm cared for. But if I see God, I may not even recognize him because my vision may be contaminated. I may be envious, etc. So, hopefully, we can be pleasing to God. Hopefully, you can be inspired to be pleasing to God as well. And we can embark on this journey together. And you can reach out and we can do some cool projects together in the service of Krishna. Musical projects, which is what I really like to do. But I need more collaborators. I need more people to collaborate with. So if you're watching this video, you enjoyed it, you got something out of it, reach out. Let's practice some music. Let's think about some ideas. Even if you're not musically inclined, let's think about how we can throw some events together to spread the holy names of the Lord throughout the land. All right, thank you so much. Namaste, Haribol.